time to do another baseball edition of the podcast. My guys, Joe Finger and Jay Cresswell, are here as we hit near the All-Star break. We're just a touch over the halfway point of the season. Joe and Jay, glad to have you guys back.
Thanks, Joe.
Good to be here.
Yeah, we got lots of things happening in this first season of baseball under the new rules. We've pretty much exhausted all the commentary on that in the last two podcasts, so we will pretty much leave it at that there. But let's start off with some team updates. Joe, you want to lead us off on your Twins?
Sure. Actually, I had three burning questions for the show tonight, and one of which does relate to the Twins. And my first question was, will any team in the AL Central finish with a winning record? That's the first question. My second question, who will the Braves play in the World Series? Let's just be real. And my third question is, who do you guys think will win the All-Star game, the American League or the Atlanta Braves? But we'll talk about the Twins for a little bit.
Yeah.
I know Jeff's going to be talking about the Braves.
There's a good chance of that, yes.
Well, the Twins, it is said, have the AL Central to win, and they are doing their best so far to keep everyone else in the race. They have some of the best pitching they've had in the history of the franchise. They lead all of baseball as we speak in earned run average. I know the Minnesota Twins, number one in the pitching staff. They have an excellent five-man rotation. I thought they were going to be very strong. Mentioned that in the previous podcast. Sonny Gray, who's their lone all-star. Joe Ryan, Bailey Ober, who wasn't even on the major league team coming out of spring training, has been excellent. Pablo Lopez, who was picked up in that offseason trade from the Marlins, has pitched better of late. And Kento Maeda, who's come back from Tommy John surgery, has also had two quality starts. So the Twins have an excellent starting five. They have an excellent closer with Johan Duran, who touches it up at about 101 or 102 every time out. And yet they're only 2 games ahead of Cleveland in the American League Central. And that's because they're not really hitting. They've got a lot of guys who are having really mediocre first half of the season at the plate, and that includes the 2 highest paid players, Carlos Correa and Byron Buxton, who has been relegated now to just DHing. His body and his knees are so fragile, apparently, that they won't even play him in center field. Both of those guys hitting in the low 200s. The Twins pitching staff leads the American League in strikeouts, but the Twins hitters also lead the American League in strikeouts. So I guess you go to a Twins game this year, you're going to see plenty of strikeouts on both sides. And so for the Twins, it's just a matter of trying to get some of these hitters back up into what we think they're capable of doing. They're 10th in runs scored right now in the American League. In fact, the entire AL Central is in the bottom 6 of runs scored in the American League stats. Only Oakland is worse, the minor league team that the A's are putting out there this year, dead last. So it's about getting some hitting. I would think the Twins might be in the market to try to pick up a bat or two come trade deadline. I certainly hope they will. They need some outfield help. With Buxton not playing center, they've got Max Kepler hitting barely above 200 in right, and Joey Gallo, who hasn't hit above 200, I think, in the past 3 or 4 seasons. He has regressed to the mean. He's hitting at about 185. They love him in Minnesota. He hits these monster home runs, but when other guys aren't hitting, it's hard to justify, keeping a guy like that. I was watching
Nelson Cruz?
Yeah. I was watching the game. What's that?
He's available.
He is available. Roy Smalley was on the call in one of the games the other day doing color with Dick Bremer, and Gallo had just launched one of those mammoth home runs, and they said, well, that's why Joy is still in there, in the hopes that occasionally his bat will run into a baseball. And I said, yeah, that just about sums it up. So I'm cautiously optimistic if they can maybe add a bat or get some guys on track with the pitching they have and a relatively weak division, that they could still have a decent shot at making it. And then, if you get into the playoffs, if they're so fortunate, if you've got some good pitching, short series, who knows what might happen. So that's kind of the mindset right now. I know the natives are restless in Minneapolis. They're saying, do not waste this pitching. We've got to get some get some more offense. So that's kind of the Twins in a nutshell.
So your question was, would anybody in the Central finish above 500? I guess you could also say anybody in the East going to finish below 500.
Well, that's exactly right. I think the Twins would be dead last in the East. I think, at least for a while, they would have been. And the Red Sox, who were dead last in the East, would have been leading the Central. So that kind of tells you how things are so upside down this year.
Yeah. For a second, when you brought up Roy Smalley, I thought you were going to say he was available. And
well, you know, I think maybe Gary Gaetti still lives up there. Herbeck is too out of shape, and Gaetti might be a possibility. Get him out there. His bat may run into a baseball.
Yeah, I think Rod Carew could probably still hit 300.
Carew probably could as well. That's right. They're really missing Louis Arias right now. You know that guy who's hitting just under 400 for that team down south of us here in Florida? I didn't mind that trade at first, but boy, I wasn't thinking everybody was going to go in the tank on the offensive side of things. They're going to have such a hard time scoring runs. So it would be great to still have him, but not to be.
All right, let's switch over to Jay to talk about the Pittsburgh Pirates. Last time we were together, the Pirates were a first place team in the National League Central, and somehow the bottom fell out. What the heck happened?
I'm going to use one of Joe's phrases and talk about regressing to the mean. Now, first of all, if you were to tell me that at this point in the season, they would only be 6 games under 500, if you'd have told me that at the beginning of the year, I'd have taken it in a second. But when you start out 20-8, and then May have been the worst month in the history of Major League Baseball, they just can't get it together hitting and pitching. Over the last couple of weeks, their starters ERA is over 10. And, 2 weeks ago, they were 6th in the league in ERA. But at that time, the bullpen wasn't doing it. The big issue with them is they're not hitting. And for example, last night in the game against the Dodgers, they blew a 4-0 lead because of their pitching. And twice between the 5th inning and the end of the game, they had the bases loaded and no outs and didn't score either time. And that is the way their season has gone. They can't hit with runners in scoring position. Now, pleasant surprises, and I said this last time we got together, Carlos Santana is the man. I don't know how he's still playing every night, but he is. He's hitting. He's Gold Glove caliber first baseman right now. McCutchen, 270, 280, which 20 years ago would have been 300. Still bringing leadership and the right attitude and everything. But here's the other thing, the best part of it, the good part. They've called up 3 guys from the minors, finally, that we've been talking about for years, and all 3 of them are playing very well. The third is Jared Triolo, who is playing third base while Brian Hayes is injured again. And Triolo is hitting, and this is the part we worried about, playing a great third base. Because Brian Hayes is leading the major leagues in any position in fielding, I'm sorry. And but he can't hit, and he always has a bad back. And quite frankly, and this is just my opinion, he doesn't seem to care very much. He does what he's expected to do and not an extra thing, much like a guy named Charlie Hayes, who was his father. Now, here's the deal. If Triolo is the real deal, everyone goes, well, trade Hayes. Well, he's hitting 217, and he's making $9 million a year, so who's going to want it? The other 2 pleasant surprises are Nick Gonzalez, who was the number 1 pick, the number 7 pick a couple of years ago at second base, and he's come up and he's hitting 300, and he's driving in runs, and he's playing very well in the field, which they did not expect. And in fact, he's playing shortstop most nights, while O'Neill Cruz is still on the disabled list. The other big one is Henry Davis. He was the number 1 pick in 2021. He's a catcher. However, as you can tell, he's only played right field since he came up. They're not thrilled that he's on the scale to be a major league catcher just yet. So he's playing every night. He's hitting very well. He has got a rifle arm. and he hasn't made a mess of himself in right field. So those three guys are all doing very well. Now, there's one more at AAA, Endy Rodriguez. He's the number one prospect on the team. He's a catcher. He's a good catcher, and he's a good hitter. However, the Pirates were at first convicted of leaving him down there to save his Super 2 status so they could be cheap. And then he and Henry Davis were both catchers. So now Henry Davis is there and playing right field. And the Pirates have two catchers. One is Jason DeLay, who gets $5 million a year to hit 189, and thus far has 4 catcher's interferences called against him in half a season. However, he's a great pitch framer. And another reason why I'm in a big hurry for the automated strike zone, because then you can't pitch frame. And the backup, he hits 300, but he's not a good catcher. So hopefully in the short-term future, they'll bring up Endy. He will catch or play first base and therefore give Carlos Santana a break. So they'll have Sawinski in center, who's second among center fielders in slugging percentage. So the kids are here. They just need to get it all together at the same time. However, apparently no one is going to catch the Cincinnati Reds, and who would have ever thought we were going to say that? They were picked to have the worst or second worst record in the National League coming into the year, and after winning today, they're 10 games over 500. And with the Cardinals being, 17 under, I think we can dismiss them and everything they're going through. So the Pirates, you know what? They win 70 games, maybe 80 or get close to 80. It'll be a successful season, and the kids will all have major league experience. I'll take it.
So you don't think this is no longer a winnable division because of the Reds?
Correct.
So let me, this is interesting because I mentioned this on the podcast last week, because Cincinnati has definitely been a story, and Ellie De La Cruz has become the big story in baseball. But I am going to put out a cautionary tale. You remember a few years back when Yasiel Puig coming up with the Dodgers?
Yep.
Having a spectacular first month. ESPN had him in the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown his first month, and they openly campaigned for him in the fan vote when it was him and Freddie Freeman. ESPN openly campaigned for him to be in the All-Star game. Yasiel Puig did not have a great career.
No. And you're right. I'm glad you brought that up. Ellie De La Cruz is a phenomenal baseball player. Mm-hmm. Okay, he's got the speed, the power, and all that stuff. Guess what? He's only been through the league one time, and the second time around might be different for him at bat. O'Neal Cruz, the Pirates version of the same guy, found that out last year. He came up, he was leading the league in, exit velocity and hardest throw from shortstop, and all. The league caught up to him. They just started throwing him slow stuff around the corners, and he was hitting in the 100s before you know it. I think that's coming for De La Cruz, but I think the rest of the Reds, Joey Votto's back and hitting home runs. Who would have thought it? But I don't know that anyone else in the Central can put it together.
Well, I'll tell you, like you said, De La Cruz is an awesome talent. He may very well end up being a great player. But major league pitchers will find your kryptonite at some point. I mean, Austin Riley, another great example. He came up. He was the natural, hitting home runs on virtually every at bat, and then all of a sudden he started getting curveballs, and he could not hit them.
So it was like the movie Trouble with the Curve.
I'm going to say the Reds, their starting pitching hasn't been that great. They may make a move to bolster that, but I think their starters had an ERA of well over 5 the last time I checked. So
correct. They're just out hitting people.
But they're just they're winning just by putting runs up, which more credit to them, I suppose.
Yeah. All right, so Joe, you've already proclaimed the Braves into the World Series, and God, I hope you're right. They have come off the most spectacular offensive month in Major League Baseball history in the month of June.
Yep.
In which they went 21-4 with a 71 run differential.
Wow.
307 batting average, 943 OPS, 175 runs, 270 hits, 42 doubles, 4 triples, 61 home runs, 168 RBIs, and they also stole 27 bases. I mean,
and that's just Acuna.
yeah, yeah, it's really,
Pretty
really,
much.
yeah, really, really crazy. The month they put up, they're still playing very good baseballs. We enter July and head towards the also right big series this weekend with the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yes.
Wish I could go to that, but my wife is out of town, so she's coming back late Saturday night, which puts traveling to Tampa out of my sphere for this weekend. So I'll have to watch on TV, but we'll be rooting hard nonetheless. Here's the thing, the offense is powerful. They're strong up and down the lineup 1 through 9. Michael Harris is your number 9 hitter.
Yeah.
And he's like having another leadoff hitter. Orlando Arcia is having a terrific season and getting to the All-Star games as the shortstop. And they still got the pitching. And just to think, their pitching staff still yet to be fortified by the return of Max Fried and Kyle Wright, 2 of their best starters. Fried closer to coming back than Wright is, but they've managed to hold it together. Soroka's come back. He pitched against the Guardians this week. Yep. And got into the 5th inning. He had traffic in every inning, but pitched his way out of it. So he's still got things to work on. You figure it's been 4 years, so what contributions they get from him will be gravy. Bryce Elder's having a career year. And their bullpen just, they are very strong all up and down the lineup. Now, I worry come playoff time, and this is why. Home run reliant teams, when you're facing the top pitchers come playoff time, it's a different story. You're not banging them out at the pace that they do during the regular season. So that is where I worry. But
you see every team's top 3 pitchers.
Yes. And sometimes, they're top 2 twice, right?
Yes, right. Yeah.
So that would be where I'm concerned. Go ahead, Jeff.
What are the Braves' weaknesses, Jeff? Let's talk about their weaknesses. Okay, that's it. Those are their weaknesses, right? There is no answer to
that. Yeah, I mean, to pick any weakness now would be nitpicking, probably.
Yeah, it's all relative. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, let me throw in, I think this has something to do with it, obviously, because this is very logical. The Braves are doing so well, and the Cardinals are stinking because of Chip Carey. And don't tell them I said that.
That's it.
No, I love Chip. I just made a joke there.
Yeah, he did jump from one extreme into the other. That's for sure.
Who would have thought of that?
Yeah, yeah. It is crazy. Yeah, it's a lot to fathom with them right now. I enjoy watching games every night. It's hard not to when you got a chance to win each and every time out. So yeah, it's an interesting aspect. Anything else around the big leagues that has caught your attention? Either one of you guys.
Ohtani, of course.
Yes.
Surprise.
Yes. And that's funny because we talk about him every show, and just when you think you've said all you can say about him, he ups the ante more, right?
He's outdone himself, I guess. He's got 31 home runs right now and has struck out 127 batters in 95 innings. So I don't know what, we always say, what more can you say? But like you said, I think he's just upped the ante a little bit. And yet the Angels are plodding along a few games above 500 with Mike Trout once again on the injured list.
Yeah.
So do they trade Ohtani? I mean, that's kind of a ridiculous question, but it's been out there. I can't see it, but they may be looking at another stay home postseason, despite that, that pair of outstanding.
I have a friend, an older friend, who when he finds cool baseball stuff, he texts it to me. And he sent me a copy of a baseball card from somewhere in the late 60s, and it was Clemente, Mays, and Aaron together. And I can't remember.
I
It was
have that card, Jay.
manager's
I
dream or
recognize
whatever
that
they called
immediately.
it. Yep. And he sent it to me, and I said, John, I find myself feeling gratitude that I saw all three of them play in person. And then it hit me that 3 weeks ago yesterday, I saw Ohtani play in person here in Arlington, and he got 2 hits and hit a home run to left field that is still traveling. And he is just playing a different game than everyone else right now, and may it continue.
Yeah, and I have to say I'm grateful as well, because last summer I got to see Ohtani when in Atlanta, and I got to see him pitch, and I got to see him hit a home run, and so it's kind of cool to see that in person and realize what he's on his way to building an amazing legacy.
The same person also pointed out to me, and I did not know this, but I actually saw this on Twitter, if it's still in existence. Babe Ruth, later in his career, came back and pitched again for the Yankees. In 1930, he pitched a complete game. And in 1933, he pitched a complete game. I had no idea. I thought that ended with the trade to the Yankees from the Red Sox. But no, I mean, that's one of those things nobody knows about. But I have a feeling we'll be seeing Ohtani pitching and hitting for the rest of his career.
And he has a chance to break Judge's home run record in the American League this year.
Yes. Yeah, this year. Yep. Amazing. Just amazing. All right. The other thing I want to bring up, and I'm sure I brought this up last time. What is up with the ball and strike calls? I know it's a constant source of complaint for all teams. It just seems to me to be even worse this year. And now we see all the Angel Hernandez clips and things like that, but it is as if pitches that are 3 and 4 inches off the corners are being called strikes. Now, I understand they always say just be consistent. So you go up there knowing if that pitch is off the corner, you're going to have to foul it off or go poke it into right field. But why doesn't Mr. Modeling do something? I don't know what the answer is. I'm sure the answer is automated ball and strike calls. It is just awful and inconsistent.
Yeah.
Is there any explanation for that? I don't have an answer for that. Is there anybody out there who's put out some type of plausible analysis of that?
What is it? They're saying screw it. They're going to replace us anyway, so we're going to do it how we want to.
Well, in the past there have been unwritten rules about the strike zone, but everybody knew, well, we're going to move it up a little bit this year, or we're going to widen it a little this year. But I'm telling you, I just think it's worse than it has ever been.
I can count a number of times I've seen, a ball that's like way off the plate being called a strike.
Yeah.
That should never happen. Right.
Yeah. Well, and you see some of the StatCast stuff after the game. And frankly, even in a game where the ump has been, quote, bad, he's accurate 92% of the time or something like that. So, overall, it's good, but some of these are just inconsistently bad.
Do you think there's a case, because it's one of those things, it goes back to the few bad apples, right? So, do you think overall you look at, most of the guys who call balls and strikes are pretty good.
Yep.
But the ones that are bad are just so terrible. And now, we get, 24-hour replays of all this bad stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. How much does that heighten it?
I don't doubt it. The other way I look at it this year, at least, is now it's noticeable when the guy calls a great game. You think, man, I didn't see anything to complain about there. It's noticeable. And I think maybe we took that for granted in the past. But of course, in the past, we didn't have a strike zone superimposed on our television screen showing us where the ball was crossing the plate, or if.
I question sometimes how accurate those graphic overlays are, especially when there's like a really tall batter.
Yeah, I mean, who does that? Is it the guy who's doing the pitch clock also drawing the box in there and sliding it around with his mouse? I want to know who's in charge.
This is starting to get into the realm of conspiracy theory, but I will make a note of this, and I'm gonna dig into the psychological aspects of this for next time. I'm curious now. I want to know more about this. I can't really respond too intelligently tonight, but is there something there or is there not? That's the question.
Yeah. I don't know. And I will say this, I think in each of the last 3 seasons, I've watched more baseball than I have. And, always watched games, during the teens and stuff like that. But now, thanks to the MLB app, you can watch games all the time. So my consumption has grown quite a bit in that. And is, is it just maybe because I'm seeing so much more baseball than I have that I'm seeing more of this stuff that we might think is not good. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and mind you, our sample size is 3. So, it would need to be a much larger study to see how others feel about it.
Yes, that is true.
More to come.
Yes. Hey, gives us good material to work forward with. That's never a bad thing. So recently, the New York Yankees got the 24th perfect game in MLB history. Domingo Germán got that, and I sent you guys this tweet because it is very interesting because when you think of all the years of baseball, 24 times that has happened. There are several things that are harder. There's a couple that I probably would not have got, and I think the first one's like the 4 home run game, which has only happened 18 times. I believe today is the anniversary of Bob Horner's 4 homer game for the Atlanta Braves. So that's happened less. 10 RBIs in a game has happened 16 times.
Yeah, I spent more time on this aspect of my research this week by far than anything else. I took a pretty deep dive into some of this stuff because I saw this same thing on Facebook, and then you sent it out like the next day, and I'm thinking, yeah, that's really, really pretty amazing. And I actually found a couple of things that were not on this list. I just did a Google search, and these kinds of lists have come out every few years, and there were a couple that came up.
Well, this is why you're the head of the research department, Joe.
What's that?
This is why you're the head of the research department.
The research department. Let me lay this out here. Let me just make sure I didn't want to forget this. We talk about Ohtani and what a great player he is because he's a great hitter and pitcher. You guys remember a guy by the name of Rick Wise?
I do.
Phillies, Cardinals.
Yes.
Cleveland.
Yes, and boy, could he hit.
He did something that I remembered as a kid when it happened. And I was probably 13 years old at the time, and I thought, holy cow, how is this possible? But June 23rd, 1971, Phillies at Reds, Rick Wise throws a no-hitter. He allowed only 1 base runner on a walk. Davey Concepcion got a walk in the 6th inning. This was at Riverfront against a loaded Cincinnati Reds team. Not only did Rick Wise pitch an almost perfect game that night, he also hit 2 home runs himself, driving in 3 of the 4 Phillies runs. No one had ever done it before, and no one has ever done it since. 3 pitchers have pitched a no-hitter and hit 1 home run: Wes Farrell, Earl Wilson, Jim Tobin. But no one did what Rick Wise did that night at Riverfront Stadium in Cincinnati. He was known as a good hitter, by the way. He was in fact, he hit 6 home runs that year.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah, he was a frequent pinch hitter.
Yes, he was. Now,
so he'll be the only one until Ohtani does it, right?
And I was thinking about that. If anybody's going to do it, he's going to do it. Now, later that season, Wise hit 2 home runs in a game in August. But I believe is the only pitcher to twice hit 2 home runs in a game in the same season, as far as I know. I wasn't able to find anything that contradicted that.
I can't think of
anything. And then In an extra inning game against the Cubs in September of that same season, he gave up a couple of runs in the first 2 innings against the Cubs. This was at Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia, in a home game for the Phillies. But after that second inning, he went on to retire 32 consecutive batters in a game that went 12 innings, and he pitched all 12 innings, essentially pitched a perfect game +5 after the second inning. And the Phillies ended up winning that game in the bottom of the 12th as Rick Wise delivered the game-winning hit. They let him hit for himself in the bottom of the 12th with the bases loaded. Pitch counts were not kept back then, but it's generally thought that he was well above 200 pitches in that game.
Yeah.
So that to me is just mind-boggling. Particularly that no-hitter with the 2 home runs. That's one that I have always remembered all of these years. But I assume I probably read about it as a kid, and I just left an imprint. But amazing.
That's some heady stuff. What other nuggets did you dig up?
Okay, one more real quick. Only one pitcher has ever hit 2 Grand Slam homers in a single game. Now, I know that list you sent out, Jeff, there was a certain batter who hit 2 Grand Slams in the same inning, and we can talk more about that. But there was once a pitcher who hit 2 Grand Slam homers in the same game and had 9 RBIs. Any idea who that might be?
Tony Cloninger.
Yes, Tony Cloninger. Yes, a North Carolina native who was on the winning end of a 17-3 Braves rout over the Giants at Candlestick on July 3rd of 1966.
Wow.
And the Braves had a kind of a mediocre team that year, but he hit 2 Grand Slams and drove in 9 runs in that ball game. And he also was a pretty decent hitting pitcher, but no one's ever done that since. Maybe who knows?
Wasn't that 66? Wasn't that the first year for the Atlanta Braves?
Yes. Yeah, Jay, you're right. That was their first year in Atlanta. It sure was.
So you said that was on July 3rd, right?
Yes.
So July 4th, of course, is the infamous Rick Kent game.
Oh, Lord, yeah.
Who was not a good hitting pitcher, and that was his only home run in his career.
Perhaps even more amazing.
In the 17th inning.
His bat ran into a baseball that night.
Yes.
Yeah, that was all over social media.
Yes. Yeah, every 4th of July that makes the rounds.
I mean, yeah, it was a great game.
The only downside of that was John Sterling was on the call because he made it all about himself because he stated, well, if he were to hit a home run here, blah, blah, blah. And of course he hits a home run and he goes nuts and he doesn't shut up. He doesn't bow out. And, now there wasn't much of a crowd left at that point because it was all, 3 a.m. But
yeah, there was nobody there hardly, right?
Yeah, it was pretty sparse. But yeah, that's the only downside to the Rick Camp thing is I can't listen to the Sterling call.
Yeah. And 40 years later, he's still doing the same thing.
I was going to say, what has changed?
He got hit by a foul ball.
Yeah.
Why? Yeah, I read about that. Yeah.
that was actually, I'm glad he didn't get hurt, but it was like, he was like, ow.
Susie, something hit me.
Oh, pretty crazy stuff. So
who was, you guys know who the guy was who hit the 2 Grand Slams in the same inning?
Yeah, I do. Fernando Tatis Sr.
Tatis Sr., I guess.
Should have known that.
Yeah. And kind of an odd thing, he hit it off the same pitcher. Canho Park. For the Dodgers, they left him in the game. So Tatis wiped him out for the second time.
It's customary in this country for you to stay in.
What was Tatis thinking when he came up the second time? You haven't had enough of me?
Yeah. They must have really blown through their bullpen the night before. They left him out there first.
I guess.
Oh gosh, that's funny.
I don't know how this was calculated. I read some piece this week that said the odds against that were 12 million to 1. I don't even know how you calculate that because it's
happened
only happened once. So what did they do? They calculated the total number of baseball plays over the, I have no idea. 12 million to 1.
Oof, that's incredible. Yeah. Some of the other interesting ones. So unassisted triple play has only happened 15 times. I would have thought that number would have been higher, but maybe not.
Me too.
Perfect game lost on the 27th batters happened 13 times.
Oh, let me jump in on that one real quick.
Yeah.
So there's been 24 perfect games.
Mhm.
13 perfect games would be perfect games lost on the last batter, which means there would have been 37 games perfect to the final out, 24 of which became perfect games, 13 of which did not. So that's about a 40% chance the pitcher is going to blow that perfect game on the final at bat. That seems kind of high.
It does, doesn't it?
If you were to do a spread on that, I didn't do that. I'm not that nutty, but I just wonder if that late, because it just seems anecdotally to me, how many times have we seen just a regular no-hitter get lost in the 9th inning or last batter of the 9th inning? You almost kind of anticipating the pitcher's not going to make it. You get the no alert, somebody's got a no-hitter going into the 9th, there's a pretty good chance they're not going to do it. So this just kind of verified that. That seems like you got not quite a 50% chance, about a 35 to 40% chance of losing it on your last.
Sure, you could get some action on that at FanDuel or one of those sites.
Yeah.
And it would be astronomical.
Yeah, right.
Which is interesting because, you often hear the phrase, when pitchers try to close out a game, the last out is the hardest to get.
Yeah.
So unless you're throwing a perfect game, it's not. Wow, that's crazy.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we talked about the 2 Grand Slams. That's happened 13 times in a game. That's 3 sacrifice flies in a game.
Yeah.
11 times. I would have thought that number would be a lot higher.
Yeah.
20 strikeouts in 9 innings 5 times. That sounds about right. 20 strikeouts is hard to get.
Yeah. Yep.
3 hits in 1 inning has only happened 3 times. So you got to bat around twice, right?
Yeah, you have to have at least 19 guys up.
Yeah, really. And I don't know who's done that. I didn't pursue that one when the last time that happened.
So very interesting numbers in the vault there. So any other research outside of this that you did, Joe?
I've got one more. I was going to have one more.
Of course. Of course.
This one is just totally quirky. We've heard about hitting for the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in a game in 1970, a young Lou Piniella got what we would call an out for the cycle. I don't even take a guess what that means. But he was early on in his career. They're playing a game at Milwaukee, an afternoon game at Milwaukee. Not many people there. Lou went 3 for 5 with a home run. Also reached base on a hit by pitch. So he had a pretty good game. But in the at-bats that he had that did not result in a home run. So 4 of his at-bats did not result in a home run. And in those at-bats, in one of them, he was tagged out at the plate trying to score from first on a double. So he was thrown out at home. Later on, he was forced out at second base. And then later on, he was picked off of third base on a throw from the catcher. And then he just made a routine ground out and was thrown out at first. So he was out at first, second, third.
And home.
So it's an out for the cycle. Yeah. Who in the world is keeping track of that?
Couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
And you said a young Lou Piniella. He looked old when he was young.
Oh, his baseball cards. I thought, man, I know. He's like, whoa. Yeah. So that was one of the strangest one I came up with.
I like that.
That was weird.
That's pretty remarkable. Yeah. I don't know how you keep track of all that.
Yeah, I don't think it. Yeah, unless somebody just noticed that at the time and made a point of, putting it out there.
He's been out at every base.
Yeah, in and out at every base.
Yeah,
He did.
that probably happens a lot in Little League, right? But not
Major leagues.
no, that's fine. Jay, you got anything else lingering out there?
No, but there is something I want to talk about. I want to talk about the regional sports networks, and I know we touched on it last time.
Yeah.
So, does anybody know what's happening? Now we see what's happening in some of the other sports. For example, the Phoenix Suns in the NBA, their new owners said, "Screw this! We're just going to put our games on over-the-air television and stream them, and we'll keep all the revenue." Mind you, how much money are these teams going to lose by not getting rights fees paid by Diamond or Valley or any of these people?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure the rest of the season will carry on as it is, but haven't there been a couple of defaults where Diamond says we're not doing this anymore for like 3 or 4 of the teams? And I think San Diego's one of them. And I want to know what those teams are doing.
Yeah. So San Diego, I believe, is the only one so far.
Got it.
So far, MLB is doing their broadcast.
Producing everything.
Yeah, they're producing everything. I think initially I read a story about this. So like the first game or two, MLB brought in whole crews to do the first couple of games. Kept the same announcers. Don Orsillo is the play-by-play guy there. And then they brought everybody that was working for Bally back in. So I'm not sure what the reasoning behind all that was, other than just to kind of get things off the ground the way they wanted to in this scenario. But so far, they are the only ones. Cincinnati was close.
True.
At taking a default payment or having a default on a payment. Outside of that, I have not heard any others to this point. I know the Braves are fine. Haven't heard anything going on there. But it is interesting because at some point, even if it doesn't happen this season, there's going to be a whole redoing of regional sports.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, times 3 sports.
Yes, times 3 sports, hockey and NBA being the other, right? So that's going to be an interesting thing to watch, because I could see, so San Diego is also, their games are being streamed for free locally, which will be one thing that might come good out of all this is if some of this stuff starts reverting, that we can get rid of the silly blackout rule.
Yes, exactly. So have you streamed any of the Padres games to hear what it sounds like? Or if I just thought of that. I'll tune in tonight because I have the extra innings package, and I'll see if I notice any difference.
I did not notice anything different other than the graphics. They just look like an MLB Network game graphics. That's pretty much it. I think everything else is solid and stays the same. So
now, if any other teams are going to go the over-the-air route for their games, about a month ago, many CBS O&Os TV that also own CW stations have dropped all CW programming so that they can keep all the inventory. And perhaps in those markets, there's about 8 of them right now, that's a good place to park your sports. Now, I was thinking about that here because in Dallas-Fort Worth, there's 4 sports. And the CW affiliate here is owned by Nexstar, which, of course, is blacked out right now on DirecTV and Dish and everywhere else. So there's no place to put the Mavericks, the Stars, and the Rangers until this whole thing is figured out. I mean, they're all on there now. The Stars finished their season. The Mavericks are upcoming, so that one will have to be figured out. And the Rangers are rolling still on Fox Sports Southwest, which is owned by Bally. It's Bally Sports Southwest, excuse me. So, some of the markets may have an easier way to put them on over-the-air TV in the local market, and then just stream them and avoid the blackout problem. Who knows? I just think it's a big mess.
Yeah, there's a lot to untangle there. And I think, yeah, there will be a point where I think over the air is going to be a factor again.
Yep.
I think streaming is going to be a major factor in all this.
Yes.
And again, that's why I want the blackout rule to go away, because I would like to watch the Braves broadcast when they play the Marlins or the Rays.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, there should be, in this day and age, you know, the blackout thing is silly. Yeah, it's a big mess. It's a big mess, and it's very interesting to see too, because you know, you look at broadcasting and sports as a whole. You look what happened at ESPN, right?
Yep.
You know, they just had a bloodbath of cutting salaries and on-air personalities and things like that. You know, ESPN is no longer, at least for me and people I know, are not thought of as highly as they used to be.
Yeah.
The one thing they've done right, I will give them this, is their streaming platform.
Agreed.
I mean, for what is it up to now, $11.99 a month? I mean, you have tons of sports at your fingertips.
Yeah.
And you know, and especially for college, you know, I can watch virtually every UCF sporting event there is.
Yeah.
So it's real incredible from that point. So streaming is going to be probably the big factor in all this. And I think it's kind of good to see things come back to over-the-air television, in my opinion.
Agreed. I have a friend who has the MLB app like you do, and that's how he consumes his baseball. And you know, I was complaining about how much I pay, and you know, DirecTV charged me $250 this year, and yet I miss games if they're on Apple or Peacock or YouTube or on and on and on. And he said, "We'll just get the app, and you can watch things, and they have the, you know, once the game is over, there's a recap on there." And it's something similar to what YouTube also does. You know, you can watch the highlights, you can watch it a short version, a long version, you can watch it however you want to, and that's all streaming. So I think that's where we're headed, but at least in market, the over the air is a great option.
Yeah, totally. Joe, you have the MLB app, right?
I do. I've got my phone right here, so a lot of times I'll just pop the Twins game on and watch it. It's been business as usual for the Twins this year. I haven't paid much attention to what's going on in some of the other markets, like, you know, you mentioned San Diego, for example. But it certainly sounds like there's a lot to sort out, try to get through this season as best as possible, and then see where we are. You know, then see where we are next season in baseball. I'm just happy that NFL Sunday Ticket is going to YouTube TV this year.
I already paid for it.
I'm finally going to get that. But yeah, in this day and age, streaming, I'm going to access. I mean, good grief, you know.
Oh no, this is
stuff.
This is stuff that would have blown our minds as kids, right?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So I'm setting my recorder right now to record the Padres broadcast tonight.
There you go.
There, now we're set.
Yeah. So I think what was the I don't know if you noticed this, Joe, or not. But I about 3 weeks ago, and it had been going on for a couple of weeks on the MLB app, where whenever the commercials were being inserted, you know, they were, you know, third party inserts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You get the spinning baseball, and it would lock up a little bit now and then. I had a problem with that a few weeks ago. I ended up calling MLB and putting in my complaint about that. It got resolved about a week later. I hope other people complain, because I certainly, you know, maybe I should take credit for all of it, but now it seems to be back to normal. But
thanks, Jeff, on behalf of baseball fans everywhere. Yeah, I get the spinning baseball every once in a while. I hadn't quite pegged it to what, you know, as closely as you had to what it might be related to.
Yeah. So whatever, you know, third party was inserting the targeted commercials for your area.
Yeah.
So That was just something that thankfully they've straightened out, because if when it would lock up, it's like, okay, this is the dark side of streaming that can be
Yes, it is.
Well,
infuriating.
I've been having trouble with the Pluto TV app when I'm trying to watch the Price is Right Barker era shows, and maybe I should call them.
Hey,
Or maybe I should just re-download the app. I don't know.
well, it's funny because I did do all that stuff that you normally try, right? Rebooted the Wi-Fi.
I'm sure. Yeah.
All right, let me
You're very
reload
tech
the
savvy,
app.
Jeff.
Yeah, go through all that. It's still happening. It's like,
Still
oh,
happening.
I got to call. It's like, at the very least, get this off my chest. So
Yeah, let us not stress any of this, because yes, to your point, Jeff, back in the day, and back in all of our days, we had one game a week, if that.
Yes.
So,
Saturday afternoon, some Monday nights.
right.
So yeah, you if you'd have
Exactly
told
right.
8-year-old me, oh, you can watch any game you want.
Every game, whatever you want.
Yep.
It's magic.
It truly would have been.
Yes, back in those days. All right, guys, ready to do some TV themes?
You
Yes,
bet.
sir.
All right. Let's go with Joe first. All right, Joe.
And that's the theme from the HBO series Succession. Have either of you guys watched that series or know anything about it?
I have
I have
not.
not, but everybody raves.
Yeah, and Jeff, you said no? Or
I say I have not seen it yet either.
you have not. Okay. Well, it ran for 4 seasons, wrapped up earlier this year, just a couple of months back, I believe it was. Yeah, in May. And when it debuted about 4 years ago, I watched the first episode or two, and I thought, this is pathetic. The acting is horrible. Are they expecting me to take this seriously? And the characters had this really crazy dialogue. And then at some point, it dawned on me that this is a political satire. It is satirical. It's supposed to seem that way.
Yeah.
And so as once I got what they were trying to do, I loved it. Absolutely loved the show. And I think the 4th season might have been the best yet. But anyway, it's a satirical comedy drama that ran on HBO for 4 seasons. And you remember back in the day, we had the big, soap opera type primetime shows like Dynasty and Dallas. This is like on steroids if you compared it to that. And there was this. It's based on this fictional family, the Roy family, and there's some belief that it might be loosely based on Rupert Murdoch. It reminded me also of another well-known power-hungry family in our political culture, but I'm not going to say the name. But it follows their ups and downs, and the characters. Succession refers to the children of the patriarch. Brian Cox played the patriarch Logan Roy, and he's getting old, and he's eventually going to die. And in fact, he did die in season 4. And his children are fighting over who gets to succeed him as the patriarch, heir apparent. And they have no moral compass whatsoever, no ethical boundaries. And as you can imagine, things just descend into chaos once he dies, if it wasn't bad enough before that. As for the theme itself, and by it, I didn't give too much away, I think, by that. But the theme itself, I found very interesting. It was composed by a guy by the name of Nicholas Britell for the show in 2018. And I'm not a musician, and I don't claim to be, but I was wondering about the instrumentation in it, and I learned that they're using piano layered with some strings, brass, beats from a drum machine, and some percussive sounds to kind of give it a kind of a hybrid classical hip hop sound, which is unlike anything else I've heard, at least currently. And so it's been very well received. It won the Emmy at the 2018 Primetime Creative Arts Emmy Awards for that theme. And Rolling Stone has put it in its top 100 themes, number 25 of the top 100 TV theme songs of all time. And one good quote from Rolling Stone, it says, "This theme is music from the series and drives home the notion of a ruling class that has descended into gangster decadence of ambition and entitlement, collapsing into chaos and nihilism." Wow. Yeah. So it's I guess sort of it does.
Those are powerful words.
One of those tunes that kind of stays with you. But yeah, I would put that show now probably in my top 5 all time in terms of my personal favorites. I thought it was that good, and to think that I started off told my wife, "What? I'm not going to watch this. This can't be serious." But it's right. It's not serious.
It couldn't be serious.
It's satirical.
So, with your description of the composition being classical hip hop, while I was listening to that, I was singing "Gangsta's Paradise" by Nelly, because the beginning sounds like that, which we all know originally is "Pastime Paradise" by Stevie Wonder on Songs in the Key of Life. So if that ain't classic hip hop, I don't know what is.
Yeah, Jay, very astute observation on your part. I'm looking at some notes I took. One reviewer said the tune is both rich in its dark classical sound from the 1700s, yet groovy like Coolio was composing it on a Steinway. Yep. So it has an interesting blend, and I'm not astute enough to describe it, but some of these descriptions that I'm reading kind of ring true.
Yeah, guys, reading it. You know what we're sitting on here, right? The next big radio format.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
We need to cash in on this.
And Jay is going to be the program director.
That I would do.
No better man for the job.
Don't rule it out, Jay.
As long as no big company's in charge of it.
There you go. All right. So Succession was Joe's pick. Now let's hear Jay's song.
Look at what's happened to me. I can't believe it myself. Suddenly I'm up on top of the world. It should have been somebody else. Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so free. Flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be? Believe it or not, it's just me.
We're going to play the full thing, not the TV version.
Just like the light of a new day, it hit me from out of the blue, breaking me out of the spell I was in, making all of my wishes come true. Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so free. Flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be? Believe for you.
What a great song.
You know what? Who cares about the TV show? Who cares about the singer? The song is so catchy. It's like diabetes.
That's
And-
great.
It's a feel-good song, right?
It is. First of all, let's talk about the song itself. The artist is Joey Scarberry. That is his only big hit. It hit #2 in 1981. And if you realize how bad music was in 1981, that's saying something. For something to be that up-tempo, because in 1981, everything was very adult contemporary or country crossover. So that was a pop record about a funny TV show. Now, Joey Scarberry sang backup for Loretta Lynn in the 70s in his teens. And everyone kept telling him, you should be a singer. And he did the one hit, Greatest American Hero. He also sang on the song Back to Back. I love this. It was the theme song for Hardcastle and McCormick season 2, only the first 12 episodes. And according to Wikipedia, the viewers were so upset, they switched back to the original theme song. So that's a pie in the face of Joey Scarberry there. Now, the song, of course, sounds like every other TV theme song. So you know it was written by Mike Post with help from Stefan Geyer. Now, the show itself only lasted 2 seasons on ABC, 1981 to 83. The premise was aliens had left behind a red Superman suit, and they gave it to this school teacher played by William Catt, except he lost the instructions, which is why whenever he tried to fly, he was flying into walls and bumping in and falling over and generally causing great chaos wherever he went. Now, also on the show, Robert Culp, we remember him from I Spy, and also Connie Selica, who he eventually married in the 2nd season. And as we know, Connie Selica now is Mrs. John Tesh. Thank you. I know it was going to come to me. And where did William Catt come from? Why, his mother played Della Street on Perry Mason. Thank you, Joe. I saw that one coming. So the show didn't do well, but the song was just such a bubbly, up-tempo, feel-good song. Another problem with the TV show. It came out in 1981. It looked too much like Superman, so DC Comics sued them over it and said, you can't do this show. And DC Comics lost the suit, so they went ahead with the show. Also, the show started in 81, right after, and William Catt's character was Mr. Hinckley, and a certain Mr. Hinckley had just shot the president in real life, so there was a blowback on that. So the show was off to a bad start, getting sued and having a presidential assassin as the main character. Now, they changed his last name in the show for the rest of the year, and then they changed it back to Hinckley for the 2nd season. This is network TV at its finest.
Jeez. Sounds like there was consultants involved.
Yes,
I never watched the show. Loved the theme song, but I couldn't have told you anything about the show.
Well, believe me, I looked it up. My mother watched the show. Okay. And, I thought, Connie Selica was pretty, so I might have watched it every
Oh,
now
yeah.
and then.
Yeah.
But that was about it. So a great song, not a good show.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe William Catt ended up working with his mother in the Perry Mason movies
That is correct.
as the son of Paul Drake.
He did.
Yeah.
He had the white hair. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you bounced back pretty well.
Yeah, I'd say so. Joey Scarberry, not so much.
Yeah, but that is one of the great songs. And I got actually a story about that too, because Jay, back when we were at WGTO, I think at the time WDBO was not quite fully transitioned into news talk yet. So they would still play a little bit of music here and there.
Yep.
And before they made that transition, I would listen to them on the way in, and Orlando radio legend Jim Turner
Yep.
played this song between 5 and 5:30 every morning.
Look, well, that was what, when you're a legend and no one's listening except Jeff, between 5 and 5:30. I think that's hilarious.
Do what you want.
Yep.
Here, get it out of your system.
Yeah. You figure, hey, I'm going out of this format, do it the way I want to, pick my own music.
That's funny.
And I always think of that every time I hear that song too. So it's like,
Oh my God.
yeah.
I guarantee you weren't alone.
No, I was not. So, gosh, that was good stuff there, guys. Baseball and TV themes.
Good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, always enjoy getting together to do this. So we will crank it up again before long, and when we start getting hot and heavy into the stretch for the postseason, and then the postseason itself.
We should have a better idea of who the Braves will be playing in the World Series at that point.
Yes, probably the American League All-Star team.
Right.
Well, I certainly hope you are right.
Yeah, I
Well,
hope so.
and until we meet again, I have at least 4 baseball trips planned, or games planned. I've seen 2 in Arlington so far this year. The stadium's wonderful.
And the Rangers are doing great.
Yeah,
we didn't even
they're
talk about
playing
that.
very well. I have a trip to Pittsburgh at the end of July, so I'll see at least 1 game while I'm there. And then in September, I'm doing a DC Philadelphia trip. It's my annual go with a high school friend to see baseball parks. And so unfortunately, Baltimore is not home the same weekend, or we'd have done all 3. So we're going to do 2 games in DC and do the middle game in Philadelphia, and that'll crank 2 more parks off my list. Plus, in both of those cities, I have people who can get me tickets.
Ah, nice.
I have 0 baseball trips planned, so I'll just be living vicariously through you, Jay. So don't let us down.
Yeah, I don't have any major league ones, but I think in a couple of weeks, on a Saturday, I'm going to go up and watch the Daytona Tortugas.
Excellent.
That'll be fun.
Jackie Robinson Stadium.
I love minor league baseball. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I was like, I haven't been to a minor league game in it feels like a decade at the very least. So I'm kind of itching to get that minor league baseball taste again.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, until we catch up next time, thanks again for being on.
Thanks,
Thank
Jeff.
you.
Thanks, Joe.
Right, where's the button?